Getting burned is one of the most terrible things for your body. So, um, one thing that burns do is a lot of people die from burns because they get bacteria in their body. So, your skin acts as a preventative layer against bacteria, right? So, most of the time when you get sick, right, the reason why you get sick is because you breathe something in through your nose or through your mouth. Generally, that's how you get sick, right? So, general, sicknesses. That's why we have COVID or whatever right now, but everyone's wearing masks. The masks being the thing that prevents any bacteria from getting into your body. But when you get burned, basically your skin is acting almost like a cover for your body. So when people get burned, anything that would have not been able to get into your body can now get into your body. So that's why it's super like awful and deadly for people who get badly burned. All right, so burns. At first I felt no pain, only heat. I thought I might be swallowed by the heat. That's an example of what? What kind of figurative language is that? I thought I might be swallowed by the heat.
Personification.
It is personification, good. Like the witch in Hansel and Gretel. And nothing would be left of me. Excuse me. Someone brought Doc rice. He tended Ma first, then came to me. The doctor cut away the skin on my hands. It hung in crested strips. He cut my skin away with scissors, then poked my hands with pins to see what I could feel. He bathed my burns in antiseptic. Only then did the pain come. All right, so obviously pretty awful. So she's obviously pretty badly burned herself, right? Her hand, the skin has come from her hand and they had to cut it off. All right, nightmare. I'm awake now, still shaking from my dream. I was coming home through a howling dust storm. My lowered face was scrubbed raw by dirt and wind. Grit scratched my eyes. Grit is just like another word for like dirt. It crunched between my teeth. Sand chafed inside my clothes. So chafe is to like rub or scrape against your skin, so it's like like painful. Sand chafed inside my clothes, against my skin. Dust crept inside my ears, up my nose, down my throat. That's another example of personification. I shuddered and in shaking, nasty with dust. Remember, this is all a dream. In the house, dust blew through the cracks in the walls. It covered the floorboards and heaped against the doors. It floated in the air everywhere. I didn't care about anyone, anything, only the piano. I searched for it, found it under a mound of dust. I was angry at Ma for letting in the dust. I cleaned off the keys, but when I played, a tortured sound came from the piano, like someone shrieking. So that's actually an example of simile and personification. Shrieking means to scream. I don't know if you guys realize that. So when she's trying to play the piano, it sounds like it's screaming. I hit the key with my fist, and the piano broke into 100 pieces. Daddy called to me. He asked me to bring water. Ma was thirsty. I brought up a pail of fire, and Ma drank it. She had given birth to a baby of flames. The baby burned at her side, right? So this is actually kind of crazy imagery. I ran away to the Eaton's farm. The house had been tractored out, tipped off its foundation. No one could live there. Everywhere I looked were dunes of rippled dust. The wind roared like fire. Again, that's another example of simile. The door to the house hung open, and there was dust inside several feet deep. And there was a piano. The bench was gone right through the floor. The piano leaned toward me. That's another example of personification. I stood and played. The relief I felt to hear the sound of music after the sound of the piano at home. I dragged the Eaton's piano through the dust to our house, but when I got there, I couldn't play. I had swollen lumps for hands. They dripped a sickly pus. They swung stupidly from my wrists. They stung with pain. When I woke up, the part about my hands was real. So obviously, it's kind of crazy that the situation of her hill, what her hands are like. A tent of pain. Daddy has made a tent out of the sheet over Ma, so nothing will touch her skin, what skin she has left. Right, so the father created a tent. He doesn't want this cloth to touch her skin. It probably would hurt like crazy. That's why he's done that. I can't look at her. I can't recognize her. She smells like scorched meat. Her body groaning there looks nothing like my ma. It doesn't even have a face. Daddy brings her water and drips it inside the slit of her mouth by squeezing a cloth. Right, so he's taking like a hand cloth. He probably has water in it, and then he just squeezes it so that the water can go into her mouth. So I guess probably to avoid her touching her in any way. She can't open her eyes. She cries out when the baby moves inside of her. Otherwise, she moans day and night. I wish the dust would plug my ear so I couldn't hear her. So obviously, this mom is in a super awful situation here. Drinking. Daddy found the money. Ma kept squirreled in the kitchen under the threshold. That phrase there, Ma kept squirreled, is basically saying like the mom's hiding this money. So it says, Daddy found the money. Ma kept squirreled in the kitchen under the threshold. So she's probably been like hiding this money somewhere. It wasn't very much, but it was enough for him to go get good and drunk. He went out last night while Ma moaned and begged for water. He drank up the emergency money until it was gone. I tried to help her. I couldn't aim the dripping cloth in her mouth. I couldn't squeeze. Why can't she squeeze? Why?
Because of that thing she had in her hand.
Yeah, exactly, right? So her hands are badly burned. She can't like squeeze her hand because it's just all messed up. It hurt the blisters on my hands to try. I only made it worse for Ma. She cried for the pain of the water running into her sores, right? So if you're not hitting it inside of her mouth, there's like her whole face is probably burned up, so it's like super painful if that water is dripping on her face. She cried for the water that would not soothe her throat and quench her thirst, and the whole time my father was in Gaiman drinking. So almost similarly to how in the other novel that we read, that the father was going off and drinking, you see that this father is doing the same thing, right? So obviously the stress of his situation, he's not coping with it very well, so he ran off. All right. I forget if I have to read this. Yeah, let's just read it anyway. Devoured. Doc sent me outside to get water. The day was so hot. The house was so hot. As I came out the door, I saw the cloud descending. It whirred like 1,000 engines. So this is something different going on here. So make sure you're paying attention. Um, it shifted shape as it came settling first over Daddy's wheat. Grasshoppers, eating tassels, leaves, stalks, then coming closer to the house, eating Ma's garden, the fence post, the laundry on the line, and then the grasshoppers came right over me, descending on Ma's apple trees. I climbed into the trees, opening scabs in my tender hands, grasshoppers clinging to me. I tried beating them away, but the grasshoppers ate every leaf. They ate every piece of fruit, nothing left but a couple of apple cores hanging from Ma's trees. So this is actually kind of something crazy that actually did happen during this time, which is even nuts. So what is this storm? What is this that is basically coming and destroying all of the crops?
Mister, you know what those grasshoppers remind me of?
We're grasshoppers.
Yeah, they're grasshoppers. Yeah. What's up? What's up, Elijah?
It reminds me of that one SpongeBob episode where there was like tiny worms and they started eating everything alive.
Yeah, I've never
And
seen
then
that
they started
before.
getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah. So this is actually something that happens. I'm pretty sure that what happens is these grasshoppers turn into something called locusts, and I think it has something to do with like something happens in their pheromones or something, and it like they switch over, and then they basically go crazy and they just start like attacking everything. So this happens every once in a while. So basically now this giant wave of grasshoppers just came and destroyed everything. I couldn't tell her, right? So she doesn't want to tell her mom that all these apples are gone. Couldn't bring myself to say her apples were gone. I never had a chance. Ma died that day giving birth to my brother. All right, so we're going to end there. Go on to Sakurative. Let me stop this video first.